Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, switching to my radio voice. And I have with me today, Joe Lukacs. Was I close?
Close enough. Just call me Coach Joe. It's a lot
Coach
easier
Joe.
that way.
I have Coach Joe, founder of the Magellan Network and Mastermind. Joe, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Tony, it's going great for a Tuesday. I'm excited to be here and to share some ideas and some concepts with your listeners, with your audience.
Awesome. So you're listed on LinkedIn as Melbourne, Florida. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia myself. But just before we started recording, you were telling me that you have an affinity to my native land of Costa Rica. So second home or is it your normal vacation place?
We normally we haven't been for a couple of years because of COVID, but normally we like to go every summer. We like to go up to Arenal, La Fortuna.
Awesome.
Go up there in the hot springs. Something we live in Florida, so the beach doesn't really excite us, quite frankly.
But
it's nice.
But
I'm not saying it's good.
I mean, the Florida beaches are pretty and everything, but I think the only beaches in Hawaii that hold a candle to Costa Rica, in the U.S. that hold a candle to Costa Rica is Hawaii, maybe.
Probably right. Guanacaste is beautiful. Totally agree with you on that. But it's fascinating. Like I've taken clients. We've actually done business like a 3 and 4 day business planning retreat in Arenal at the base of the volcano. Beautiful and the hike. So it's just a beautiful country.
It's so different.
And I would just and it's so true what they say about Pura Vita, which is people just have a different pace. It's fine. It's very nice. And I would encourage all your listeners if you ever want to go somewhere and it's we found to be totally safe, no issues from that perspective. And it's just a beautiful country with beautiful people. So I just wanted to make that statement.
So Pura Vida, for the listeners, is the Costa Rican slogan, and it basically means pure life. And it's our hang 10 kind of thing, like don't worry, man, everything's fine. It's a very nice atmosphere. Now the negative side of Pura Vida is that everybody's always late. We call that Tico time.
No, Tico time.
Yes, Tico time. Yeah, because we call ourselves Ticos. So Tico time is 30 to 45 minutes late if you're lucky. That's normal. Okay.
Yes.
Now, if you wanna hear the extreme of Tico time and Pura Vida chill attitude combined, so my brother is we're recording on Labor Day Tuesday, right? Right after Labor Day. That's
right. That's right.
So my brother visited for the weekend. He arrived on Friday. We actually had never met in person. I'm 40, he's 20, and I've known he existed, but we had not connected. We finally connected a few months ago, and we finally got to meet. He came to visit Atlanta, so he was here Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and flying out Tuesday morning. So I drive him to the airport 5 a.m. Tuesday morning. Like he has like an 8:30 a.m. flight. Like I make sure that he's there in time because he wasn't in a pre-check or anything like that, right? It's a big airport.
Right.
Okay. So I come back home, nap for an hour and a half, shower, start working, and then I get a call from him, and I'm like, shouldn't you be in the plane? And he's like, I missed my flight. I'm like, you were there 3 hours before.
Now you're in Atlanta, or you're in Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta.
Right?
Yeah.
So Hartsfield. So I totally can see that.
No, but like we were purposely there 3 hours early, and he made it through security in no time. But we were up late yesterday, so he made it through security in no time. He was the first person in front of the gate, and then fell asleep.
Right.
And they called for him. He just slept through it. So anyway, so he calls me. He's like, I'm taking the train back. I'm flying out tomorrow morning. So that's the Pura Vida.
That's the if there's a negative side to it, that's the negative side to it.
Yeah. So anyway, so we always give the guest the elevator pitch, the chance to give the elevator pitch. So what is the Magellan Network and Mastermind?
So I've been coaching financial advisors and insurance agents for 28 years, and in that time, I recognized the fact that there's really not a community of like-minded advisor agents. So 4 years ago, I had enough clients at the time. I said, hey, we're going to go launch this thing called Magellan Network. And I like the word Magellan because Magellan's an explorer, proving people wrong, right? Proving the thought of the day, world is flat versus round, things like that. So it's an appropriate term because if you're in this industry, you always got to be looking forward. You can't be looking back, because looking back, it does you no good. So 4 years ago, we started it. It was about 100 clients and myself, and I think we're at 1,586 members now inside the network. And it's just a really cool thing to do, and I enjoy sharing a lot of my ideas, a lot of my concepts. I mean, all I do is coach financial advisors and agents. So this is kind of the space I live, eat, and breathe, and I like imparting my knowledge, wisdom, and it's fun. So that's why I do what I do.
Okay, so what was your background? So 28 years coaching financial advisors. Yep. I'm guessing you started as a financial advisor yourself, or how did you start in this space?
No, interesting story. So at the time I lived in New Jersey, and at the time I worked for the Tony Robbins organization. Tony Robbins is a motivational speaker.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. Everybody knows Tony is. So
hey,
a lot of people.
If anybody in the Tony Robbins organization happens to listen to us, I'd be more than happy to have him on. Just reach out.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you would. Yeah, you and everybody else. So what a lot of people don't know about the organization, at least at that time, was there was the public face, which was personal power, infomercials, seminars, all that. But we also had a very robust corporate training division, which nobody knew about.
But it makes so much sense.
Yeah. And so we used to teach a lot of sales training, a lot of influence training, and I happened to be in New Jersey, so we covered Southern Manhattan, so Wall Street, stockbrokers, insurance brokers, who wanted to up their sales skills. So that's really how I started the industry. Was really, there was a term they had was called PDC, which is professional or personal development consultant, PDC. That was just code for commission salesperson / rep. That's really what that meant. So I did that for 2 years, enjoyed it, learned a lot about the industry, stuff like that. But at the time, you got to remember now, this is like the early to mid 90s. There was no such thing as coaching. You couldn't find it. The coach was only about sports. So what happened was that I would have clients, I'd go to branches all the time and agencies and stuff like that. And I would be in there, like a wholesale would be in there like every 6 to 8 weeks, whatever we're doing. And people and guys and gals would come up to me and say, hey, I want to go over my goals with you. I want to go over this, go over that. And it was great. But if you didn't buy anything for me, if I had anything to sell you, my family did not eat that day, right? So what happened was, just by happenstance, I saw a need that advisors and agents would be willing to compensate me for some of my time to act. We didn't even use the word coach back then. It was a personal, like personal professional development consultant, and that's what we did. So there was no coaching term, there was no coaching business back then. It was just totally laid out the way that it needed to be laid out. So that was just part of the mix. So that's literally how I started, Tony, was just like planting my flag, in one February morning. And I remember how I went out to the market. This is very important, I think, for your listeners. So there was no business model. There was no template. There was no how-to guide, masterclass on how to do this. So what I realized was, to get good at this, I had to do it. So literally the way I started my practice was, I would give any advisor or agent an hour of my time. And at the end of that hour, I would literally give them a blank invoice, and I'd have them write whatever they thought it was worth to them. Some people would write $50, $20, $5, $100, to whatever it was, and it had to be cash or check, no credit cards, right? And that's literally how I started my business 20 and a half years ago.
I love the idea. So I've been doing chatwithtony.com for like 6 or 7 years, where any insurance professional can grab time on my calendar for free for some career advice.
Sure.
And my girlfriend has been bugging me. My girlfriend and my CPA, who is her sister, have both been bugging me for years that I should charge for that. But I have a lot of fun doing it. And ultimately, it does feed the recruiting business, which is,
of course,
which is the day job. I've played with different ideas on how to monetize that side. What I had not thought of a uh, blank, what was it
Yeah.
worth to you? Pay whatever you
Yeah.
want after the
Yeah.
fact. That's a fantastic idea.
It was something where I didn't have time to sell because I needed to work. So I said, let's take the sell. Let's just, let's just make it an offer, right? Let's just make an irresistible offer that's going to be hard for somebody to say no to. And look, did I get people that gave me like $1? Yes, I had some interesting people. We don't get into the terms here that would literally say, "Oh, it was all right. Here's a buck," and like literally it was a dollar bill, right? And so it's okay, fine. Well, that person we're not going to worry about. But then I had people who really valued it, had a great day, and I would see them the next like month. I say, "Hey, last month we were together. I want to give you some more money because what you told me really, really worked really well, and so I made a lot of money. So here's something extra," and it was great, from that perspective. So I think like for young agents, you've got to be in front of people. We're in the people business, and you've got to do that. So instead of preparing to go be in front of people, go be in front of people. Learn to talk to them, right? And like by the way, Tony, I had the same thing you do for decades. Any advisor agent can go on my account, go to my website, book 30 minutes with me, totally totally gratis. I've done that, and every once in a while I think about shutting that off. But like you said, I love it, man. I love it because it's like you just don't know who's going to show up on those things. It's
Correct.
it's different. You just don't
Yeah,
know. It's like a little mystery.
Mine was created because I'm bad at details, so I was getting a lot of messages by young insurance people, claims adjusters, stuff like that,
Right.
saying, "Hey, how did you get to where you are? What's with all the designations? Can I pick your brain for a little bit?" And the chat I enjoyed, but the back and forth emails trying to get it on the schedule, the time zones, that kind of stuff was a pain. So I bought chatwithtony.com to put a Calendly link on it to automate that piece, and it just kind of took off. And now, years and years later, I have several clients that started because of a Chat with Tony conversation, and several jobs for clients that I filled because of a Chat with Tony conversation 6 months ago. So it just works. I agree.
Yeah.
So before we start recording, you were talking about the mindset, the habits, and the motivation of a producer.
Yeah.
So tell me, I mean, I agree that success as a producer has everything to do with those three things.
Yep. How do you?
But if I tell that to my little brother, "Hey, go sell insurance, make sure that you have the right mindset, habits, and motivation," he's like, "Okay, exactly. What do I do?"
Yeah, no, it's great. So for decades I've been trying to think like, what is mindset? Everybody thinks there's this term mindset. So what is mindset? So I've kind of come up with this formula. I've been refining now for the last decade. So, and by the way, these are in no particular order. They're all equally important. So, I mean, you think of what is mindset? First off, is you've got to have vision. So, in other words, what are your goals? If your goal is to make and you know this, if you get into the insurance game to make some money to survive, that's exactly what you'll do. If you get in this business to make good money and take care of your family, that's what you'll do. So part of this is, if you get into this, and your brain goes, "Man, if I can just make $3,000 a month, that covers all my expenses." That's a very dangerous game because it conditions your mind to think in terms of survival, scarcity, not abundance. And a lot of producers don't see that till years, if not decades down the road, where they're stuck in that loop. And the only way they seem to grow their business is when they grow their expenses. It's kind of a weird dynamic.
This is super, super interesting because so I've never sold insurance. Well, I was actually life licensed in the state of Iowa part-time and didn't sell a single policy. That was years before actually coming into insurance the way that I ended up coming in. And I've been selling now for the last 4.5 years, but I've been selling recruiting services. And I was doing that as an employee until very recently, 8 weeks ago today. So 8 weeks ago today, I made the move and I became an independent recruiter. And that when it became clear that it was time, my girlfriend had been telling me that it was time for years, and friends had been
Right.
telling me that it was time for years. But when it
Mhm.
became clear that it was time,
Mhm.
my first reaction was fearful. My first reaction was,
Sure.
I I have no doubt with that with my network and the podcast and all that, I will be successful in the long term, but
Right.
giving up my base salary and benefits,
Yeah.
uh, how do I survive to the long term, right? And I
Mhm.
looked at, well, part of it was, okay, I'm gonna minimize expenses,
Right.
maybe get rid of the expensive apartment, and
Mhm.
minimize expenses while things get going. So much I even
Mhm.
thought of not quite doing it from my mom's couch in Costa Rica, but I thought of getting a cheap apartment in South America. I thought of
Right.
moving back to Iowa for a
Right.
few months, right? My
Right.
mother-in-law's basement kind of thing. Okay.
Mhm.
And then uh, it finally hit me that I was acting out of fear. And right,
Yes.
and exactly the thinking you're describing. The how do
Yeah.
I make at least enough to survive?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, that's the wrong approach. The
Right.
right approach is, how do I kill this? Like, yeah,
Yes.
be smart about your expenses, but
Yes.
don't worry about moving to a cheap apartment. Maximize revenue. How do we
Yes.
do that? Okay,
Right. Because
and
there's
it
only
took
so
off
much.
like a
Yeah.
rocket.
Yeah. Because there's only so much expense you can cut. I mean, so you have to eat, you have to breathe. I mean, there's so many things, and so many producers and agents worry so much about their expenses that and I said, you don't have an expense problem. You have a profit problem. It's a and that's a whole different
Um,
thought process,
so
right?
interestingly, I don't know if you're a Dave Ramsey fan.
I know he is.
I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. On YouTube, I watch it a lot. I don't follow it
Mhm.
100% any stretch of the imagination,
Mhm.
but I do like him a lot. And most of the calls that he gets, he's all about
Yes.
getting out of debt, right? Most of the calls that he gets,
Yeah.
it's more, how do we uh, control your expenses? You're doing
Right.
okay making money. But were you spending too much? How do we
Right.
control your
Right.
expenses to
Right.
clean up your debt? Okay. But
Mhm.
every once in a while, there's somebody that calls in, and it's like, I I'm making 29,000 a year, and I have 22,000 in debt, and I'm drowning. And
Mhm.
and Dave will be like, you don't have an expense problem. You
Right.
you're
You
making
have an income problem.
starvation
Right.
wages, right? Like, get
Yes.
a
Exactly.
second
No.
job, you bum,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the beauty. And that's the beauty of being in the producer space. You get to set your revenue, but that requires you to have responsibility to do so. I think so. So a certain mindset. So vision. We got to have vision. We got to have that, right. The other belief. The other part of mindset is belief. Is belief. You got to believe you can do this. Now, when I say that, it doesn't mean you're going to know how to do it from day one. So here's part of the challenge. You have to become failure friendly, not failure adverse. You
Failure
have to
friendly.
friendly.
Okay.
Yeah, because
This
failure is the
I
key
have
to,
not heard before. Okay.
good. So I'm going to trademark it when we get done with this today. That way
Okay.
I have
So
it.
failure
Yeah. So
friendly, not failure
failure.
adverse.
Yeah. So yeah. So in other words, human beings try so hard not to fail. Like, I don't want to blow
Yes,
this
yes, yes,
call.
yes,
I
yes.
don't want to blow, dude, you're taking 10 minutes to prep for a cold call. Just make the call. Just make the
Yes.
damn call, right? Because you can make 10 of those in the 10 minutes you're going to think about it, right? And take action. So I think part of it is, to go out there and do it. And what most human beings, you kind of hit it a little bit on with your story, is we as human beings crave two things: comfort and certainty. And when those things are challenged, boy, it really freaks us out, right? But like what you did when you decided to go off and become an independent recruiter, your first brain was like, "Oh, this is very uncertain. We
Yeah,
think it's
I
going
have
to work. We just
always
don't know how
had
soon."
a base
Yeah,
salary and
yeah,
corporate benefits.
yeah. It's called certainty. That's called certainty. And a lot of people, and there are certain people that really need it. It's like, look, it's not like a box check. You either have it or you don't. It's like a spectrum, right? And that's just going forward. So if you're high certainty driven and then you're in the producer game, you're going to be very methodical. And that's going to frustrate you because your brain goes, how come all these other people that started when I started are doing better than I am? What are they? Are they smarter than me? No. Are they working harder than me? No, not really. but their work style and approach is different, hence the gap, right? And the most advisors or producers don't really see that until, like, years down the road, if at all, going forward. So you got to be willing to fail. Like in our tribe, Magellan, Friday's always rainmaking day. We call it rainmaking Friday. And I say, look, today's goal is to fail. Today's goal is to fail massively. How much can you fail today? Because I know because look, in any interaction, referral, COI, cold email, LinkedIn, whatever you're doing to get opportunities, you're going to fail 95 to 99% of the time. You just are. Those are just the hard facts, truths of the industry, right? But the faster you get to the 99, the faster you get to the 1. But if you're trying to like freak yourself out through the first 15 or 20, it'll take you a week, 2 weeks to get to the 99.
This
is get there one day.
So interesting because it's the exact same approach that I take on Chat with Tony when it comes to job applications. Basically, you're gonna have to put in a few hundred job applications.
Yes, correct.
You're gonna get rejected by 95% of them.
Correct.
Usually, like a blind email, a canned email with no conversation.
Right.
Every rejection gets you one closer to an interview, right?
But yes, but we've got to be. But unless you're conscious, here's the key thing: unless you're consciously having that conversation,
it beats
with
you
yourself
up, yeah.
every morning. Yeah, unless you know what's supposed to happen, right? Now, the way I use the word beat up, which is interesting. So the way I would equate it to this: if you hired somebody as a personal trainer and you went to the gym for the first time with that personal trainer after you've been training by yourself, and the next day you wake up, you're going to be sore. Yeah, it does not mean anything's wrong. It just means you did something different, right? But if you didn't know you're going to wake up sore, you're like, oh my God, something's wrong, right?
That's true.
But if you know you're going to be rejected, okay, it's part of the mix. It happens. So But the problem is that most human beings operate in a very unconscious state. And there's just these subconscious habitual conversations that we have, which kind of screw us up, right? So that's really important. The other thing I would say, and I have this, I talk to my clients all the time about this. I say, look, the goal is to be uncomfortable today. Now, what does uncomfortable mean? Is that you're always pushing your comfort zones out, right? You're always going to try one more phone call, one more conversation, one more referral conversation, right? Posting maybe one more resume, whatever we're going to be doing. We want to be always, because I believe that human beings are either expanding or contracting, either you're becoming more comfortable as an expansion or you're constricting down because of everything. So you got to fight it. And a lot of people think being uncomfortable is, oh man, I'm really stressed out. Mm-hmm. You're not really stressed out. You're uncomfortable, but your brain tells you you're stressed. Mm-hmm. Why? Because, stress is wrong. Oh man, it's something wrong. I'm really stressed out. I'm doing too much, right? Where it's like maybe it's just that soreness in the muscles, like saying, oh, okay, I bench pressed today. Oh man, I'm really sore. I should never bench press again.
Yeah,
I should never work out again, right? Yeah, like you just can't do that. So this is the mind. Go ahead.
I was gonna say one comment that keeps playing in my mind on the failure friendly. Yeah. I think of it like baseball, and I'm not a big baseball fan, but baseball. Even superstars don't get a hit 2/3 of the time, right?
Failure based.
Exactly. If you're getting to base 1 out of 3, you're a superstar. So it's just a matter of figuring out in your field what is that number, right? If you're a financial advisor, it's probably if you're getting a conversation 5 out of 100 calls, you're a superstar. As long as you understand it, it's fine.
Yeah. Right. You don't have to love it, but understand.
Exactly.
You don't
understand the reality.
Yes, if you're not. Yeah, and that's a challenge for a lot of people. Along with we talk about mindset. Okay, so what else is part of mindset? So we got beliefs. We got vision, what we want to accomplish, things like that. Then there are 3 energies you have to bring into the game. So what are the 3 energies? Okay. Yeah. This is perfect. Right from Costa Rica, almost. Mental, physical, and emotional energies. You need to bring all 3 energies in, because, and this, we all know this, right? Let's say you don't get a good night's sleep. Well, the next day you're going to struggle with your energies, right?
Yeah.
And physical energy is the bottom of the pyramid, right? So if you're not in, if you look, I don't need anybody to be. You don't need to do an Ironman. You don't need to be David Goggins or anything like that. You don't need to do that. Okay, but you need to have a baseline fitness and health scenario that allows you to deploy your energies in your business all day, every day. And so, to me, if you're physically exhausted, you're mentally tired. If you're mentally tired, you're going to sleep. Any conversation you have, you're sleepwalking through it. You're sleepwalking through it. You're just going through the motion. You're writing an email. You're going through the motions. You're just going through the motion.
And I've got to say, I use a CPAP too, because I have sleep apnea.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And everybody I know who uses a CPAP will tell you that they didn't think they were tired. Right? Usually they finally usually get it because the wife or the girlfriend is finally like, you're snore like a bear. I will either murder you in your sleep or you get a CPAP, right? And they go get a CPAP, right? That's how it went for me. And you you're like, but I feel fine. Like I don't hear the snoring and I feel fine. And then you get the CPAP and you use it for a week and you're like, oh my God, I did not realize how very, very tired I was.
Tired I was because you weren't getting good sleep. Yeah, it's
and
contrast. 100%,
everything is harder when you're everything, and you
everything's a struggle. Everything's an issue, and so bringing energy, and that's why coming into whatever part of this industry you're involved in, if your goal is to get to the office to go put your feet up and relax and not drive results, well, that's gonna happen. So physical energy is easy, right? Mental energy. Now, what's mental energy? Mental energy is what I call taking in knowledge, taking in information, right? Taking in inputs. All right. Now, what's emotional energy? Emotional energy is when you're trying to influence another human being. So, like right now, I'm using a lot of emotional energy because I'm trying to influence you, trying to influence your audience, stuff like that. I have to show up a certain way. Now, if Coach Joe was like lounging on, like sitting back with his feet up doing this interview, you would sit there and say, "Hey, there's something wrong here. There's something really not here."
Yeah, and in our world of sales, emotional energy is everything.
Right. Even and a lot of people, this has been the shift the last 3-4 years, where it went from either in person, phone sales, or you did digital, right? Email, messaging, stuff like that. Well, now video sales, i.e. Zoom, right? Or Zoom-like, right? I mean, I spend 8 hours a day on Zoom now, doing this. And the standard on a Zoom meeting versus a phone call is totally different.
Yep.
Because the phone call, I could wander around. I could maybe sit down on the couch back there if I wanted to, right? Stuff like that. Here, you got to be present all the time. You cannot take a minute off, right? From that perspective. So you got to have energy levels to really drive it. There's nothing more sinister, in my opinion, than having, here's what I want to get done today. I got to get this done today. And then you show up to the office and like you just don't have it. Like you just don't. You're trying to find it. You're grinding through the day, whatever you want to say, but it's just not happening for you. And that to me, I mean, that can really weigh on a mind a lot going forward. Right? I think that's super important. So that's the other part of mindset of 3 energies. And then the other one, quite frankly, is why are we here? So it's the intent, right? You're here to. So look, the reality is, if you're just to make a lot of money for yourself, you'll do it, but it's not going to be really sustainable, because you're going to have to compromise a lot. But if you're here to help other people and you have a mission bigger than yourself, then you'll serve the greater good in a much deeper way, a lot longer and a lot more successfully, because it's not about you. Make it about you. That's limiting.
It's amazing how many parallels there are in the recruiting world. In recruiting, anybody, like your 18-year-old kid can graduate from high school and start an LLC for $200 and call themselves a recruiter. There's no license, there's no education requirement. So there's a lot of fly-by-nights. And you can make good money, especially if the market's hot. You can make good money, but you're not going to last a long time. Because eventually you'll run out of suckers who are willing to work with you when you don't know what you're doing, or where you're putting yourself ahead of both your client and your candidates.
Yes.
So it's very interesting how similar that is.
Mhm. Yeah, and all worlds are small worlds. I don't care in the insurance world, advice. Reputation matters,
Well,
and it gets out there.
especially in today's age of social media.
Yeah.
Where was I reading this? That it was an article or study. It was something about how, and it used the founder of or the CEO of Enron as an
Mm-hmm.
example. So
Mm-hmm.
the guy was known, had a reputation as a philanthropist
Yes.
in Houston, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and uh, after Enron went down, turns out there
Mm-hmm.
were a million allegations against him in a bunch of like a bunch of different types of corruption, uh,
Yes.
and they just hadn't come out. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in today's world, those things come out very fast.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can't
Almost
hide from
instantaneous.
your
The,
misdeeds
the,
anymore.
no, that's right. And I think that's why, always it's easy to win short battles and lose a war. And I tell my clients all the time, look, do not take the easy road on this. It'll come back to haunt you down the road. And you've got to think strategically. I was talking to one of my clients. She has a client who's not exactly thrilled. And I said, well, you have two choices. You could hold her feet to the fire on the contract and get the rest of your fee, and she'll pay it. And then she's going to burn you to the state. She's going to burn you to the ground on Google and everywhere else she possibly can, right? Or we could be strategic and say, you know what? I'm going to forgive the second half. No harm, no foul. Have an exit interview, talk, and that went really, really well, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, we always have to remember that human beings are emotional creatures. We're always going to want to act emotionally first,
People,
and usually that's usually the worst. That's why you gotta like bite your tongue and wait a couple of minutes, if not a day, before you fire something back at somebody.
people don't remember uh, what you told them or what you did
Yeah,
for them. They remember how you made them feel,
correct,
and that is
100%.
so true.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
in my world, and I'm sorry to keep bringing it back to recruiting, but there's
No,
so many
no, it's all look.
uh,
The parallels are there. It's no big deal. Yeah, of
so
course.
in my world, for the first 4.5 years of my recruiting career, all I did was sales. The candidates
Yeah.
were not mine. The clients were mine.
Mm.
Now both
Right.
are mine. So I'm really
Mm-hmm.
enjoying it. But now I have to sometimes bring bad news, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, if we find between 3 and 5 good candidates for each role,
Yes.
and one of those candidates gets really good news, and between 2 and 4 get bad news, and I
Right.
have to deliver those bad news,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, and yet I have to tell you that you didn't get the job, uh,
Yes.
and yet I want you to leave with a good feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to leave thankful that you connected with me 3 weeks ago or whenever.
Yes.
Uh, and I have been successful at that thus far. Uh, I think it's a huge piece. It's all about how you make people feel, right? I'm
No,
delivering bad
exactly right.
news,
Yeah.
but I'm delivering
Yes.
them in a
Well,
humane, compassionate.
right.
Uh,
It wasn't like you just sent them an email saying sorry, you weren't accepted,
so
and
that was
best of luck. See you later. Yeah.
the first thing during training that I promised myself. I am much more comfortable. I am very comfortable on a scheduled Zoom call, and I am very
Mm-hmm.
comfortable on email. I am not comfortable calling you unannounced,
Right.
much
Right.
less for bad news. Okay.
Right. Right.
So I had to promise myself that I would deliver bad news quickly and on the phone. Right. So the
Okay.
very worst
Good.
case scenario,
Yeah.
I will leave you a very sympathetic voicemail
Mm-hmm.
telling you that you didn't get the job.
Right.
Uh, but I won't cowardly disappear or just send you an email.
Right. Right. Which is good because again, longer term, they're still a good candidate, just not a good candidate for that position, right?
Exactly.
And you want to keep rapport because they're the ones that are going to have to go out on the next round of interviews, right? And go through all that.
Absolutely.
And you want them wanting to do that. No, I totally get that. I think the other thing too, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people do, and it's a real miss. So one of our core tenets inside of like one of our prime beliefs inside Magellan Network is that we want people to reinvest back in themselves. So we
Okay.
call it a personal development budget and game plan.
Love it.
Coaching, seminars, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do, right? And we like it to be like 10% of what they make.
And
Um,
in an age
and,
of declining corporate training budgets, and now a lot of your people are probably not W-2 employees at New York Life or wherever.
yes, correct.
But either way, even for my people, many of whom are W-2 employees,
Yeah.
in an age of declining training budgets, invest in yourself. And I think 10% is a wonderful number.
Yeah, it's a simple number, and quite frankly, I mean I can go back 15 years ago, where if you want to get education or training, you had to go buy a CD program. You had to go buy, you had to go to like Nightingale Conant and buy and pay $100 and get like CDs, audio CDs, whatever. You can go to YouTube now and literally pay nothing and listen to some of the best masters, from Tony Robbins to Ed Milet to whoever you'd like to listen to, and get training and education
So true.
For free, right? I mean, so there's no excuse. Podcast. Look, I mean, your audience, they're learning as you and I do this thing today. They're learning, right? Same thing. So education, when we say 10%, that I think that 10% is easy. That's an economic number, right? The challenging thing is, where do we find the time? Where do you allocate the time? Where do you put the time to learn these things? And to me, it's very simple. Have a morning routine. Take the first hour of the morning and don't watch the news. Instagram will be there for you. Trust me, it's not going away. But devote it for yourself. Maybe have some curated YouTube videos ready to go. Maybe listen to this podcast. Have this next episode spun up, ready to go. Even if you're just sitting around and having a cup of coffee or tea, or taking your dog for a little walk, or whatever you're doing in the morning, just take the morning, take an hour in the morning for yourself. And yes, if that means getting up a little earlier, then get up a little earlier, and take that hour for yourself, for you. Be selfish for the right reasons. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that, And I just think people are the first thing we do in the morning is what? We go for our phone. What's the second thing we do? We go right to either our social media feed, our news feed, or inbox. Yep. 3 of the worst possible places you could start your day with, period. Right? From that perspective. And look, that stuff will be there in 60 minutes. I mean, I would challenge your audience to say, hey, I get up, I'm not going to touch the phone for the first 60 minutes, and see how that goes. See how many days. See if you can even do it for 30 minutes. Yeah. So just see, just be present with yourself.
My deer in the headlights look is very sincere here.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm not questioning that. But it's just like, we remember how you just said, when you didn't realize how tired you were till you got the CPAP machine, then you realized how tired you were. You don't know how addicted you are.
I know
until you're not addicted to the phone anymore.
Yes,
I've had clients, and I go, "What's the matter, man?" He goes, "Oh man, I'm not in a good way." So what's going on? Oh, just all the politics like that. I said, "Show me your phone." Oh, and we're on a Zoom. Show me your phone. Oh, Facebook, delete. CNN, delete. Fox, delete. I want all these apps off your phone. Just said that. I said, and you have them set up on alerts, so all you're doing is getting ding ding all day, and you're like a monkey. You're trained. Oh,
yeah.
ding.
Oh, yeah, I gotta look at
definitely.
I
gotta look at it, right? Yeah. So I said, look, that's a terrible idea, and it's costing you money. Not just that, it's putting you in a bad mood, man. You're just not enjoying life anymore. Like life's too short for that. Like we gotta get out there and enjoy, and let everybody else worry about that stuff, right? So I just think there's a lot of things, when your compensation is tied to your productivity and performance, there's so many things a producer can do to really, and my whole ethos is not to work more hours. I don't believe in it. I think that's actually diminishing return. I think it's about working less hours, but at a higher level, crushing it and being done.
And the research more and more is on your side. right? The research more and more. There's companies and countries experimenting with four-day
Yeah.
work weeks or shorter work weeks, and they're finding that people are just as productive.
Yeah.
And there's I really need to dig into this, but I'd make a video about it. But my understanding is that there's good research out there that basically says, so historically the 40-hour work week, or the American obsession with more and more hours, the 40-hour work week was a compromise with the labor unions during the industrial age,
The
right?
industrial, that's correct.
And yeah,
It's 100 years old. It's 100 plus years old. Yeah.
if your job is doing this with a press and making some
Yes.
sort of plastic or metal
Yes.
thing, right,
Mhm.
blue collar, then yes, you can't possibly make more money, neither for
Mhm.
you nor for your company, without putting in more hours.
Right.
But for a white collar worker,
Yeah.
or somebody in our space where you're both white collar and even emotional labor, it's not just brain
Yeah.
work, it's very emotional,
Yeah.
right? It's connecting with
Yeah.
people.
Sure.
um,
Yes. 100%.
uh, there's a limit to how much of that you can do
Yeah.
in a day, and
Yep.
sadly that limit is probably not 10 hours. It's probably not even 8. That limit is
Mhm.
probably like 5, right?
Well, yeah, if you think about results, right?
Yeah.
So let's take in your scenario. Right? You could have been up at 4:30 this morning doing stuff till 8 o'clock at night, but you make one phone call to one prospect and they say yes to you, and you get a retained search deal.
Oh yeah. No.
That
Yeah.
30 minutes covered the whole day,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
You
The whole
produced
week. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Easy.
Yeah, yeah,
Easy.
yeah. So that's the thing, is now if you're not putting yourself in a position to do that as much as possible, then I
Yeah.
would submit to you that we're not doing highest and best use, right? So optimization and optimizing, right? Looking at everything you're doing and saying, is this what I need to be doing? Is is this going to yield me the result? And it's hard for human beings because we're so distracted. But if you were to sit there, and by the way, I don't believe in counting time and tracking your life in 15-minute increments and create, like, because most people can't do that. They're
That's
not
true.
wired to
Most
do it.
can't. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, they do it for a day and it's exhausting. They never do it again. It's just a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
But if you consider and say, hey, look, here are the 5 things I know that really make me money: talking to people, talking to new people, like wherever it is, right? And ask yourself at the end of the day, how much of the day was I in these 5 areas here, right? Simple thing, right? Simple,
Yeah.
right? So yeah. Like you and I don't make money doing paperwork.
Yeah. No. No. Absolutely.
Yeah.
In my world, it's called being in your market, right?
Yes.
I specialize in insurance and insurtech recruiting. How much of the day did I spend chatting with
Been in the
people
market. Yeah.
in
In the
insurance or
market. Yeah.
insurtech, right?
That's it.
If I spent at least 4.5, 5 hours of the 8-hour day, or the 10-hour day or whatever
Mm-hmm.
in front of insurance people, this was a good day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Eventually
Yes.
it'll pay off.
Good. It'll
Uh,
pay off. Yes.
so
100%.
it's the same idea, absolutely. So we're kind of running out of time. It's been a great conversation. So the listeners who made it this far are like your
Yes.
style. So how do they get involved? How do they join the mastermind? Is it in person? Is it online? How does it work?
It's very simple. It's just a web address, MagellanNetwork.net. One word, MagellanNetwork.net. And it's free. It's grass. We have paid tiers, but the basic is free.
Basic is
You can
free.
come in, try it. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, well, I give them back. I do a lot of content here. So
Awesome.
I've got a lot of good stuff. Yeah. So even on our free side, there's probably about 70 hours of master classes, content, Zoom recordings, things like that, that your listeners can access. And it's my gift. It's totally cool. And if there's ever a need for me, they know where to find me. That's kind of the way I run
That
my
is a
business.
fantastic amount of free content.
Yes.
Awesome. Joe, this has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a really good one. I just noticed that you and I are not connected on LinkedIn, so I am adding you right now.
Well, I
When
appreciate
the
that.
podcast goes live,
Yes.
I will tag you on LinkedIn, and I will tag
And
Magellan.
I'll push it out. Yeah, it'll be great.
Awesome.
100%.
On LinkedIn. And yeah, I I think this makes a lot of sense for a lot of my listeners who are on the sales side of our beautiful industry.
Cool. Excellent. It's my pleasure doing it.